Hello, beautiful, and welcome to another episode of Beautiful, I Am Colored. My name is Evelyn, and this is a place where I share stories from my debut book that holds the same title as this podcast. I am honored that you have returned to hear more of my stories, and thank you to those of you who tuned in last week. I appreciate your support. For those interested, you can also follow me on Instagram at Beautiful, I Am Colored. This week, I will be sharing 2 additional stories from my book, but before we begin, a little bit of business. Copyright 2022 by E.D. Booth, also known as Evelyn Barnes. All rights reserved. No parts of this book may be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means, including storage and retrieval system, without the written permission of the publisher. So let's begin. Betrayal. After Marlon and I were married and I had graduated from high school and moved across the country, I remember feeling so happy. Nothing in the world could stop the two of us. I was finally free of the horrible stepfather and wanted to start my life anew with the man I loved and my daughter. The first few months of our marriage were fine. We slept on the floor for a couple of weeks until our discounted furniture was delivered. We didn't have a lot, but we had each other, and to me, that's all that mattered. I would later find out that our love was not enough. Once the fall came and football season was in full swing, I can recall the phone ringing, and when I answered, someone hanging up. I also noticed Marlon taking a stronger interest in his pager, even when he was at home, despite being told at the time of purchase that it was for the two of us to communicate. I eventually got a special phone that could show who was calling. If the number was on campus, it would also show where the number was calling from. This seemed to really bother Marlon, which triggered what most folks would call instinct. I call it red flags or warnings. One day, he came home from practice and immediately went to the bathroom to take a call. This was before the day of cell phones. The phone was a cordless landline phone. Shortly after the call, he left the house. Leaving the house was not uncommon. He rarely took me anywhere, and when he went out, he almost never took Caitlin and me with him. I would soon find out the reason why this was the case. All of this odd behavior of Marlon's came to a head when my suspicions were confirmed that he was cheating. After all I had been through, what did I do to deserve this? I had been nothing but faithful while we were apart. I had survived the daily looks of disgust and disapproval as I walked pregnant through the halls of our high school clear up until the last few days before Caitlin was due. And now this, and in a new state where I had no friends and little family, I felt stuck, betrayed, humiliated, angry. But I learned that I needed to feel protected and provided for. But more than anything, I needed to be able to trust. Marlon provided all of those things for me initially, but it was unfair to expect him to deliver without fail on all these fronts. The subconscious desire for Marlon to fulfill all that I wish my father had been was too high of an expectation for anyone to carry. The best decision I ever made for myself was to become the most complete Evelyn that I could be. And this meant facing some hard truths about narratives I created in my own mind, narratives that weren't actually true. Are there times you created a narrative about yourself that perhaps wasn't true? Maybe it's that you're unworthy of good things or that you could never lose those last 20 pounds. Believe me, I've been there. I am here to tell you that self-doubt can be the most destabilizing method of stagnation that one can encounter. One thing that helped me, though, was cataloging all the things I am thankful for, starting with something easy, like thank you for my hands, thank you for my feet, which cascaded into thank you for my family, and so on. Accentuating the positive things, no matter how small you think they are, makes a world of difference. Author's comments. This story brings back so many memories. Like, the good news is I can read this story without my voice quaking and without my heart beating so fast. But I will just be honest with you. It took me so many years to get over, and I shouldn't say get over, but to get healed from, to reestablish trust. As many of the listeners know, especially if you follow me on Instagram, Marlon and I are still together. It's been 26 years this year that we've been married. But I will tell you, like, from the first year we got married, clear on up until perhaps year 15, it was a very difficult time for me, largely because I had some compounded traumatic experiences that I didn't really know how to work through. You couple that with being a very young mom, being in a new environment, and also, of course, the challenges that I had gone through as a little girl and as a young girl. Like, it was just so much to carry. But I will say, and can't reiterate enough, before I could even get to a place to talk about things, my journal was like my refuge, So I literally have in one of my journals like a list that I just wrote I am thankful for until I couldn't write anymore, and went back and reread it. And there is something, and I can't describe it, but there is something that happens when you are grateful, even in the times where you feel like you can't hold your head up. And trust me, I have definitely been there. But there is something that happens to you on the inside at the spirit, soul level when you are grateful for even the smallest of things. And so I just want to encourage you listening to this particular story this week. If you're going through a hard time right now, maybe just try to be thankful for one thing, for two things. It can go a long way. End of author's comments. Reflective question. Make a list here of all the good things in your life. Hidden bottom. I came home from work knowing in my mind I had already set a date with Hatch, a New Mexico wine made with green chilies. I poured a nice full glass, which in turn led to the entire bottle being emptied and consumed. I sat in my bed and I began to cry. It was an end of the road sort of cry, the cry that hurt so bad you can hardly catch your breath. And although this cry was not incredibly audible, I am sure that its sound would have been one of extreme sorrow and pain. You see, as I mentioned previously, I had my mindset that I could handle things, but by that, I mean all things: kids, work, school, volunteering, etc. But the truth is that I didn't have it all together and was anything but together. On the outside, it may have appeared as if I had it together, but the depth of Evelyn was almost gone. I felt her slipping away, and I didn't like that I was losing her, me. For all intents and purposes, I should have been happy. After all, Marlon and I had just purchased and renovated a house. I had also gotten a promotion, and money was flowing more freely than it had in times past. But I was miserable. For months upon months, I had been meditating on divorce. What it would be like if I went through with it, how I would survive on my own, what the kids would think, etc. These thoughts of divorce didn't come because Marlon was or had become a terrible husband, friend, or lover. It was simply because I had convinced myself that we'd somehow grown apart. I blamed it on the fact that we got married so young and didn't really know what we were doing, and a host of other things. But the truth is that I had become so angry with myself internally that I required to project it onto the closest person in my life. In hindsight, one could say that I was angry and detached much of the time we were in New Mexico. Author's comments. The funny part about this story, and I'll just share some insight, this was a blog post from 2015. At least that's what the save date time on my computer states. It was 2015 when I actually wrote this. And New Mexico is actually one of my favorite places to be. So to reflect back on this story now, I have replaced these feelings of sorrow, if you will, with so many more new memories at present date, that this seems very foreign. Like, it actually seems like this is not a true story. But therein lies freedom, right? When you get to a place of living your life, to its fullest potential. And I definitely haven't reached a perfected state at any point, of course, but it just feels strange, I guess, in a way, to share this story with you. Again, this was a blog post from 2015 that I inserted into the book. Nonetheless, it's relevant. End of author's comments. My whole life, I had been angry with my mom for not providing the safety I needed as a child. This lack of safety resulted in molestations which occurred at the hands of multiple people before the age of 12. So, at 36 years of age, there I was crying and truly sobbing in my soul over what happened to me when I was younger. I am not an extrovert, and it takes a lot for me to tell someone exactly how I'm feeling without considering their feelings. More specifically, it was a challenge for me to be assertive with people who are in certain authoritative roles in my life. Author's comments. This is a critical point in the story where I'm really talking about how I was trying to have a voice and find a voice but didn't. What was revealed to me through therapy was that as a child, when, I was molested, I actually did speak up to a couple of different people, but nothing was done. And so I don't know how it works from a cognitive standpoint, but something in me triggered that, maybe I shouldn't speak up, because when I do, nobody's really listening because they're not applying action to what I've told them to do. And so this carried on until, as I just read, till my mid-30s or so, where I still was having some challenges with, being assertive with people, which to some of you who know me very well may seem a little bit strange, because the Evelyn that has evolved, the more mature and the more experienced Evelyn. But I can tell you at this time, I had not quite reached that level. End of author's comments. The day I devoured Hatch in my bedroom, I prayed and asked God to help me get through. And I told God I did not want to be or feel this way any longer. I expressed my sorrow for not fully trusting Him and relying on myself to get through, which ultimately led to an epic failure. One thing I have learned is that the only person I am responsible for and can control is me. Even if people, spouse included, do things that don't align with how I feel or what I think, it is not my job to help them see the big picture. As a result of this revelation, I began to make decisions solely for myself. For example, I made up my mind that I would finally go to counseling, either with or without Marlon. And you want to know the irony? I went to counseling thinking that I was going for help with my marriage, but it ended up being all about little old me. Yes, me. I was there for myself and to get myself better, which ultimately turned into getting us better. I encourage you to take care of yourself. It is not selfish to be a full and complete you. As a matter of fact, you might just be surprised how much other people will recognize the change they see in you as you begin to do the work. Reflective question. What things are you doing to take care of yourself? Describe them here and describe how these efforts have helped and/or heal you. Well, I want to thank you again for listening. That concludes the stories for this week. I hope that you enjoyed them, but more than anything, I pray that you have found a sense of hope and healing in me sharing stories with you. The future you is waiting on you. So until next time, beautiful, have a great weekend or week whenever you listen to this.